Went to bed one night and I woke up and there were paramedics in my room. I had ended up having a seizure in my sleep. I was lucky enough that with the hospital I ended up going to could get me in for a brain surgery 2 days after I got admitted to the ER. Recovered for about 2 weeks, and then as soon as they would let me go up back on the water, I was like fighting to get back to the boat.
We're here at the beautiful campus of the University of San Diego. Jonah, so I always wonder this with crew case because it's sort of different. Some grow up with it, some don't. Some go to college and all of a sudden it becomes the thing that they do. You grew up with it. So how did you get into the sport?
Yeah, so I mean, generally compared to other sports, you don't get into it really until either late middle school, early high school, which is, I mean, compared to like soccer, swim, track, it's kind of late. But I got into my sophomore year of high school, sophomore fall, and that was during COVID and restrictions, things like that. So my position actually was completely irrelevant during that time. So I started crew as a rower, rowed for about 7 months, and then they lifted COVID restrictions, and I missed the first day of practice, and we were back out in big boats. And then the next day I come in and they're like, "Hey, we need a guy to steer the hoe. You want to do it?" I was like, "Sure." And ever since then I've been in the cockpit seat.
That's interesting. So was it restricted because they didn't want people yelling at each other?
Yeah.
So
So the nature of the sport is obviously I'm facing a rower, like 8 guys facing me, I'm facing them. So obviously like me yelling, screaming at them probably isn't safest. And then also just the close proximity of the sport. I mean, they're all separated by maybe a few inches in between every seat. So yeah, it just wasn't quite safe enough for COVID.
So first time driving the boat. I mean, you probably got this is temporary, and then we'll go back to rowing. But that didn't hot. So did you fall in love with it at first, or did it kind of take you a while to get
I did fall in love with it the first time I ever got to sit in that seat. I remember getting on the water, not really knowing what to do. My coach just gave me the opportunity. He's like, "Hey, don't worry about anything else. Just steer and enjoy it." And, I think I took advantage of that opportunity. It was a very easy way to get into it. And, I fell in love with it immediately.
And for those who don't know the sport very well, talk us through what goes into steering, because obviously, anyone's been on a kayak before, right? And it gets kind of out of control. But how do you face this way, know what's going on there, and then communicate that to your teammates?
I'm facing all 8 rowers who are facing behind me, so they can't see what's ahead of them, and we're in a 50 or a 50-foot long shell, so it's quite long. And my goal is to keep them as safe as possible and keep them in the know about what's going on, so that they're not looking over their shoulders, they're not freaking out about what might be happening. They need to feel safe. I have strings that are inside of my seat that connect to a sea egg under the boat that kick the stern or by end of the boat to the left or to the right. It's depending on where I want to go. So it's more like drifting, really, than steering a car. Your back end of your rudder's kicking out, and your nose kind of stays locked in the same position.
How do you balance that with telling one side of the boat to go hard? Like, is steering more effective than having one side, roll a little bit harder and the other one kind of chill for a little bit? Or, what's sort of the balance?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. Generally, if we're doing straight line racing, which is our sprint season, you want to have port side being my left, their right, or starboard side, my right. Give power to keep you in the center before you go on the skeg, because the nature of the boat is that if I use the rudder at all, it creates drag. It'll slow us down, and we don't want to, obviously, when we're in straight line, we want to go as fast as possible. So usually I'll try to have one side or the other give me pressure to turn the boat before I decide to go on the sticks.
Yeah, I'll talk about sort of like the discipline that you have to do a sport like this. I mean, most sports, you get the crowd and everything, and you get that, but you guys are up at 4 a.m. on the lake or ocean, whatever it may be. How important is discipline and hard work in the sport?
I mean, I think it's everything. Every sport talks about discipline and hard work. And I think it's a crucial part of every sport, but especially for rowing. It's not one of much glory. I mean, you think about how many people know much about rowing at all, if they're not in the sport or at a school that has a rowing team. So you're not in it for popularity. You're not in it for glory. You're just there because you love hard work. You love doing it with the guys on your team, and you want to win.
And your work ethic. I mean, you dealt with some adversity outside of the sport as well. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? I mean, how did that help you become so driven in rowing as well?
Yeah, and so my freshman year, so 2 years ago, in the spring, it was about beginning of March. So we had had a couple races. I was feeling good. I was lucky enough that I earned my way to the top boat my freshman year. So I was feeling really good about where I was at on the team. And early March, I went to bed one night and I woke up and there were paramedics in my room. My roommate was propping over my bed and I was like, "What's going on? Like, why is everybody? What's going on in this room?" I had ended up having a seizure in my sleep. I was taken to the hospital and I had a bunch of scans done on me, and they found out that I had a cavernous malformation in my right frontal lobe, which affects like all left side body movement. It affects reading, speech comprehension, any sort of movement. And it was quite a challenge. And, you know, in the time I was thinking, well, like this isn't that bad. Like I'm going to do whatever it takes to get done. Like I don't want to be out of the season. I was lucky enough that, with the hospital I ended up going to, could get me in for a brain surgery 2 days after I got admitted to the ER, had the surgery. During it, they actually found out that I, was actively bleeding in that spot. So I was lucky enough that I got in, or else, you know, things could have ended up a little bit differently. So despite my doctor's recommendation to take it easy for a month, I recovered for about 2 weeks. And then as soon as they would let me go back on the water, I was like fighting to get back to the boat.
I just want to rehash that. So you had brain surgery, and then
Yeah.
2 weeks later, you're back in the boat.
Yeah.
That's insane. You're aware, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been told that before. Looking back on it, it was pretty crazy, but in the moment, I love the sport so much. I love the guys I do it with. I love the team. I love the culture here, and it didn't really cross my mind to take a step back and think about how much of a feat that would be to try to recover in time to get back in that spot. The only thing on my mind was I need to get racing again.
I would assume balance is a pretty big part of it, and after having a surgery like that, was your balance a little bit off? Because it seems like it might have been up simply, right?
Yeah, it definitely was, and I didn't realize it until much later. I currently have the entire left side of my body is slower to react and weaker than the right side of my body, just because of scar tissue and healing and things like that. But yeah, it was quite an adjustment, and I think the biggest one was my speech comprehension. So I need to look at whoever I'm talking to face to understand what they're saying. If there's noise happening or somebody's trying to talk to me and they're not in my line of sight, it's very difficult for me to understand what they're actually saying. It's almost like trying to translate a language that I've never heard before. So that itself was also a challenge. The amount of communication that I need to have with the rowers, and the coach isn't in the boat with us. They're off on a launch, 20 feet away from our boat. So learning how to create that line of communication and have me interpret that and send it to the rowers was honestly a bit more of a challenge than steering it, balance itself. I mean, I am lucky enough that my position during the race doesn't require much physical fitness. So I was lucky enough that, after my brain surgery, after this, I was able to get back in boats as quickly as I could. And, I was hungry for it. So I didn't, usually athletes want to take the slow track to heal. And I think that's always the smart thing to do. Luckily, I wasn't at risk for, losing my condition due to something like that.